Rick and Morty presents Snuffles Goes to War. Morty asks Rick what he's working on, and he's told it's an outdated piece of junk, and he's got a lot of people that need a treat. He asks Morty to pass him the soldering iron, and Morty says the word Snuffles for some reason when I don't see it. Rick acts like he doesn't remember Snuffles, and Morty's offended. I guess Rick's just pretending not to remember. Like he's so cool that he doesn't have to remember him. Then we see Planet Dog 1, or Doggone. Snuffles thinks that a conqueror could never hope to achieve what he did. He's told that his convoy is ready and says it'll be a night to remember, and then we see a bunch of weird squirrels sitting at an office desk being asked to report. The squirrels say that they've found the dogs. Are these aliens that have human intelligence? Oh, right. Maybe this is going off that stupid story idea in the show that the Earth squirrels had human intelligence all along, and plotted against Morty for being able to understand what they were saying. Which I hated because it was an excuse to get Rick to say they had to ditch their planet again. And I knew there was a reason. I was wondering why humans wouldn't have found out that the squirrels were just as intelligent as them. It's because if they were just as intelligent as humans, then people would have studied their brains like they did every animal, and found out how intelligent they were just by seeing their brain structure. They found the dogs because of a trans-dimensional Raycon drone. They already know about Snuffles and were spying on them. It sure is lucky for the dogs that they're already more technologically advanced than humans are, when their planet of origin is the only one they'd have to study the technology of. But I guess it's supposed to be because the dogs have intelligence-increasing helmets. So they're even smarter than humans. So the squirrels want to intervene because they're scared of what else the dogs have. After a dog is interviewed about his latest movie, and he says he used CGI to create a human co-star for it, Snuffles shows up and calls him the real star of the evening, being a sympathetic character being written properly, but says that he'd supplied notes on the villain, Jerry, who didn't want any of the dogs freed. Finally, the padding ends when there's an explosion at the theater, and Snuffles wants the other people saved first, but their orders are to secure him first. But he's the one giving orders, isn't he? Isn't he the one in charge? Still, it's a relief that they're getting his character right. The squirrels waste a page complaining that they missed, and Snuffles wastes a page wondering who tried to attack him. And they question a squirrel they conveniently managed to capture. It's amusing that they all instinctively bark at the squirrel in the cage, and one of them says that old habits die hard. Of course, all Snuffles has to do is adjust the communicator so that squirrel language can be translated. They plan on getting him to dodge oncoming traffic for a while to scare him into telling them what they want to know. Realistically, he would just get hit. Not to mention he could just lie to them. After Snuffles is told they've got oncoming fire, Morty tells Rick that something weird's going on outside, and Rick just says that Summer's sunbathing. I guess he's just being snarky with them. He tells Morty to hold on to something and stay still, and Morty says that all of the squirrels have vanished. He knows this for sure just because of one walk around the neighborhood. That's pretty convenient. You'd think he'd never notice it. It's kinda hard to notice an absence of something. You'd think it would take days for him to notice. Rick asks him to bring the remote control inside and says he finally got them some quality programming back in this house. Then he shows Morty that the dogs are trying to shoot lasers at squirrel airships attacking their city. Rick somehow thought showing him this was a good idea when he should know Morty would just disapprove of him and lecture him and want to help. And Rick just thinks this is entertaining television and gets Morty mad at him for asking who Snuffles is. Then he tries to calm him down and tells Morty that he was just confused because Morty kept calling him by his slave named Snuffles. If that was his problem, he would have told him that right away. Villain scenes are what happen when the writer doesn't have enough creative material to last an entire story. I don't need to know how these unlikable squirrels are coming to their decisions. I'm just finding them boring. Blah blah blah, long story short, they're trying to shoot at Snowball's tower. He asks for the untested soldier prototype so that he can fight them with a mecha. For some strange reason he stops and says he's fine, and then there's an explosion and he's sent out of the mecha. So somehow Snowball ends up hanging from the ceiling and says that he recognizes that tech, and realizes that the squirrels have been dealing with Rick, and in leaving his collar on, they've lost the game they started with him. I guess his collar has a tracking device. So the dogs burst through the wall to save him. Then Rick gets bored because they seem to want to have a discussion. I guess the reason he's getting this camera footage is that the camera is in the tech he supplied them with. And he opens a portal saying that diplomacy would only lead to both species being angry at him. And yet he's gonna go right where they are. Well, they would go to Earth anyways and attack it. I guess he doesn't anticipate that by the time he gets to them it'll be too late. But if he did, it'd be responsible of him to go there so that they wouldn't attack Earth looking for him. So this whole story started because of an idiot ball where Rick decided to supply the squirrels with technology for no reason. Since when does he supply anyone with his technology instead of hoarding it? He chose that species of all species to be charitable to? If he did this for the squirrels so that they'd stop going after Morty in that one episode of the show, I guess that makes sense, because if he just killed the ones that were going after Morty, the entire squirrel species would never stop trying to attack them. I guess he promised to keep making weapons for them. But we should have been shown him agreeing to that. That could fill in a plot hole in the show, so they really didn't have to leave their planet after all. He didn't tell Morty that he started supplying them with weapons because he would disapprove of that. He's told to get back here because he orchestrated all of this. But he wouldn't have a reason to intentionally do that. You'd think it'd be common sense for him to not try to provoke the dog species after they left the planet, and he was very lucky they did that. There's reason I assume he'd never do that. He just brags that he made Snowball the way he is and throws some acorn-shaped grenades, and I'm guessing he'll get punished after he's finished reminding them that he's their creator and these are his weapons. I don't get it. What happened to get him vulnerable? If he got hit, we really need to see the impact with him. Suddenly, something isn't around his neck anymore. How? They could have drawn this better so it would make more sense. Because this is Rick we're talking about. It's kind of hard to believe Snowball would have an advantage over him. Morty warps to Rick with a portal gun of his own and asks, what if the squirrels agreed to leave your planet in peace, and Rick agrees to not give them any more weapons? They'd have to trust Rick to hold up his end of the bargain. Rick asks what he gets out of this, as I'm still wondering why he did this in the first place, when he could have given any species weapons. And he should have been paranoid that if he did, people would try to use those weapons against him. I guess he wanted the squirrels to give him squirrel currency that badly, when he could just open a portal below anything he wants and get it for free. He could manufacture a disease, like a nanobot disease, that would purely target squirrels. I guess he didn't want to risk it attacking non-squirrels. You think he could just program robots or nanomachines to go kill squirrels, but that would attract attention from like the whole world. Rick tells Morty that the peace he established can only last for so long, and he reveals that he's got the squirrel's natural predator caged up, able to speak in English and shoot eye lasers. He could just not do this. I guess he's got every reason to want revenge on the squirrels. Why would he trust them not to try to attack him again? I'm getting a feeling that these guys resent Rick. If he was smart, he would program them to not want to hurt him no matter what. Scientists would discover the things that he's sending against the squirrels. He'd still attract attention by sending these things after the squirrels. Snowball's told that the city will have to go into emergency funds to survive this. Thankfully, they were smart enough to have emergency funds in the first place, just in case. And their defense team has begun fortifications, making another attack like this impossible. I hope so. And the story ends with Snowball staring at a picture of him with Morty. And thankfully he still cares about him. This story was about the super smart squirrels on Earth invading the civilization established on a new planet by some of the dogs of Earth in that one episode, because they're scared of what other technology they might have. That's a weak excuse for them to invade them. I'm pretty sure the dogs don't even know how smart the squirrels are. And the whole story only happened because Rick arbitrarily started supplying the squirrels with weapons to fight the dogs with. Even though he should have known that Morty wouldn't want his former dog to be killed because of that. In fact, he starts recording what happened to the dog planet. And showing Morty it, even though he should immediately know that Morty would disapprove. He could have made money off supplying anyone with weapons. He could easily just send robots to kill the squirrels. You'd think a genius would be smart enough to not supply anyone with weapons because they might use them against him, or at the very least because you'd think only he should have that kind of technology. Of course, Rick isn't known for being responsible. I liked a few moments in the story, but not enough for me to love it. I found it amusing that the dogs all barked at the squirrel and that Rick assumed Morty was talking about summer sunbathing when he said something weird was going on. You'd think he'd know that he wasn't talking about that, since he's supposed to be a genius. I guess he only said that to try to get him to stop talking about that. It was nice that Morty was useful by talking the dogs and squirrels into a peace agreement to save Rick from them. After Rick went over to their planet alone, completely outnumbered, and got grabbed and threatened. If this is a show Rick, he might not have an Operation Phoenix clone in his own basement, so it'd take forever for him to get back home after he'd get killed. Morty should have known he couldn't actually die. He just didn't want to be separated from him, even for the amount of time it'd take for him to come back. I guess the story was alright, but it felt lazy because it wasn't very creative, because it just used ideas from the show. It seems like it was surprisingly predictable because, of course, Snuffles gets captured,